Hey, how is everybody doing? Welcome back to the channel. First off, thanks so much for the support recently. I love interacting with you guys in the comments. However, I'm a little disappointed in the Vikings. I'm kind of a little disappointed in the way they've handled the preseason, the way they've handled playing their starters. I don't think they went about it in the right way. This is just a personal preference with me. I see the other side of the story, but just from my experience and from what I've watched in NFL football, I think the Vikings killed a lot of momentum they had kind of riding into this season. I think the Vikings, I don't like the way they handled not playing a bunch of their guys during the preseason. So we're just going to start week 1 of the preseason. Doesn't really matter. They didn't play anybody, but from week 2 and 3, from what I've saw, those are 2 games I really watched. This is just mainly talking about the offense. I am going to be mainly focusing on them. I really did not like the way they looked. It felt a lot like last year, and I understand offenses right now in the NFL preseason. I mean, they're not showing you much. It's very vanilla. It's very just this, and this, and it's just very simple offensive game plans. And also, I understand the Vikings love the bootleg. And the bootleg is, of course, a play-action play that kind of relies on the defensive linebackers and DNs and corners to bite on that run and to bite on the run stretch play that they're showing. And I get not having Dalvin Cook, they're not going to bite on the bootleg as much. So it kind of limits the bootleg, and it doesn't allow them to kind of get the full offense kind of going at full cylinders. But I was looking around the league, and especially in this Kansas City game when I watched, Kansas City ran their full 11. Like what we saw in that first drive with Orlando Brown and the new linemen that they brought in, they felt it was necessary for them to play their all 11 so they can get some continuity, so they can get some kind of rapport going with each other, because it is the NFL and you need to come out of the gates hot. And that's the thing that irritates me with the Vikings. I know you're not supposed to look at the schedule. I know NFL teams, you're not supposed to look down the road at the schedule or look at your schedule and be like, all right, we have an easy spot here, because it's NFL. Anything can happen. Injuries to certain teams, injuries to certain quarterbacks can really change if a schedule is easy or not easy, or just how teams kind of are. I mean, a team you expect to be good could be bad, bad could be good. You know what I'm saying? But if you look at the Vikings' first 6 games, in Cincinnati, in Arizona, if I said to you guys we would lose both those games, the season would be in the brinks for those next 2 games at home versus the Browns and the Seahawks, which are 2 of the top teams in the league. And my point being, the Vikings knowing they need to get off to a hot start this year, because they need to go into Cincinnati and go into Arizona and at bare minimum split. I think they should be able to take care of business and win both those games if they are who we think they are. So they need to get off to a hot start. And they have a bunch of new pieces on defense and offense that they kind of need to interwork together, especially the defensive side of the ball. You have a bunch of guys like Pat Pete, Harrison Smith, Danielle Hunter, all these guys. I would have wanted to see them on the field and get some reps in game together, because how many times, and this is the only real part I'm going to mention the defense and we'll get back to the offense, but how many times has Zimmer's defense had a Harrison Smith and Xavier Rhodes kind of looking at each other like, hey, that's your guy, or it's like, no, that's your guy. I mean, even in the Colts game, for an example, we had that it was the Broncos game. The Broncos game had that massive 80-yard touchdown, and I'm just like, that seems so classic. And it may be because the Vikings are coming off a really bad year from the defensive side of the football. I just felt they needed to roll those guys out there in the secondary, because the secondary is a lot of communication. I can understand not playing Danielle Hunter. He's coming off a neck, and Danielle Hunter, I mean, breaking down the defensive end position is you set the edge, you see ball, you get ball, you see quarterback, you get quarterback. I mean, that's if you do that well as a DN, you'll be fine. But when it comes to the secondary, it's a lot of communications, a lot of zone. Are we in man? Are we running cover 2? Are we running cover 3, cover 4, cover 6? Like, what are we doing here? Are we doubling this guy? Or is the safety help over my head, or is it over the X corner's head? Is it over the slot corner? I mean, there's so much just little cadences. And I'm not saying they didn't work these out in practice, but I think it would have been good to get game reps in versus a first-team offense. I mean, Kansas City said they were going to play their 11 guys. They flat out said that. They said they are going to play their guys. So why don't you go play your guys and see how you match up? Because their offense is most likely going to be the best offense I have probably seen in my entire lifetime next year, with a combination of what they added on the O-line and what they already have, plus their play caller. So go get Danielle Hunter, go get Eric Hendricks, Harrison Smith, and Patrick Peterson and say, hey, we're going live for a series. I want to get some reps in before the Bengals preseason game. And a little bit of me thinks they're underestimating the Bengals. There is a little bit in the back of my head, and maybe it's just a pessimistic, negative Vikings, fan coming out of me. But I'm getting a little nervous about this week 1 game because the Vegas put the line as 3.5. They think the Vikings are going to win by 3 to 4 points. That's what they think it is, and I would probably put it at the same too. I would have initially thought 4 to 5 is where they would have it, but it really just comes down to a point. I wish we would have had more reps as a first-team defense and a first-team offense before the first game. And especially with the offensive side of the football, I understand the injury thing. Like, I feel like that's the easiest argument somebody could make is like, oh, well, what if they get injured? Like, you see J.K. Dobbins. Injuries happen, in football, whether you're playing in a game or in practice. You're probably going harder in practice with these joint practices than you are for the preseason game anyways. So I really hate the injury argument. And plus, you look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady's 44 years old, and he played a quarter and a half of a preseason game with a team who is returning all 11 starters from the offense. And the Vikings can't get Jefferson and Cook out there for at least a drive? Like, I understand Jefferson doesn't need preseason. Cook doesn't need preseason. If we think about them just individually, I understand they're going to get out there and perform week 1. I'm not saying Cook's going to have an off game week 1. He'll bring it. Jefferson will bring it. But that continuity and that chemistry you build when you just go rep after rep after rep, it makes those big drives in the fourth quarter seem smaller than they are. It makes those 2-minute drives when you got to go get a field goal to win the game just like another rep and just like another moment. Adam Vinatieri, he used to say all the time, he used to treat his preseason kicks like they were the kicks that would win him the Super Bowl. So you just keep doing it over and over again. So yes, I'm a little disappointed with the way the Vikings handled their preseason. I wish they would have gotten a little more momentum rolling into the year, because it could just be me. I think the momentum has kind of scaled back a little bit with us as a football team and kind of the hype we have around us. Still a lot of talent. I still expect them to have a very successful year, but I think if it were me running the team, I would have made Jefferson, I would have made Cook, I would have made the whole 11 offensive guys play one drive against Kansas City. And I would have had all 11 defensive guys, especially since Kansas City was playing their whole first-team offense. I would have definitely had them play at least one series. I want to know what you guys think. I think this is an interesting kind of debate topic. I think it could be something where you see it completely differently. But I'm always a thing. I get the injury argument. I do. I would hate for one Viking starter to go down week 1 or in a preseason game. But also, they're football players. They're playing football. They're gonna that stuff happens. If you're constantly thinking about that, you're not gonna win games. You just gotta go out there. You just gotta play. I would have handled it differently. I would have liked to see an all 11 get a good drive going, because we had zero offensive touchdowns. I mean, yes, I know A.J. Rose had those 2 at the end of Kansas City, but we really had no first-team touchdowns. Cousins did not throw a touchdown pass, and he played a lot of drives in this preseason. Little concerning to me. I mean, they looked really bad without Jefferson and Cook out there for the Kansas City game. So we'll see. I just don't like the way they handled it. That was pretty much it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Skol Vikes, week 1. Cannot wait for it.